voluntary basis without compensation. The purposes of the commission are to promote the educational, cultural, economic, and general welfare of the city through the preservation and protection of buildings, sites, excuse me, structures, areas, and districts of historic significance and interest, and preservation and enhancement of local, historic, architectural, archaeological, and aesthetic heritage found in the city through the maintenance of the distinctive character of the city's historic districts and through the promotion and enhancement of the city's historic and aesthetic attraction to tourists and visitors. I'd like to say again, good afternoon to everybody, and I'd like for our other commissioners to introduce themselves, and this evening we'll start from my right and the audience left.
Carole King.
Dallas Hanbury.
James Long.
Kamala Barnett.
And to the persons who are in our audience, if you come before the microphone, and to our other commissioners also, we'd like to just encourage you to speak directly into the mic if you have any comments, questions, or whatever, but to speak directly into the mic. To our other commissioners, you have in your package the minutes of the previous meeting. The chair will now entertain a motion for the adoption of those minutes.
I move that we adopt the minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we adopt the minutes of our last meeting. Is there any unreadiness?
With regard to the minutes, it talks about the resolution that we adopted last time. And can that resolution be added as an attachment or part of the minutes? A written copy of that?
We can do that.
Christie?
We can do that. We can do that.
Okay.
Okay, with that, that's fine.
You're fine? Okay. Any other unreadiness? All those in favor of the minutes of the last meeting, please let me know by a show of hands. Motion carried. Thank you very much. We'd like to begin our...
Dr. Bill,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I guess I misunderstood it, but maybe you meant for later, but you said come speak directly in the mic. So
No.
I'm here to speak directly in the mic.
All right, okay.
When you have your comments...
Well, while I'm up here, though, I'm sure most of y'all know Darby Forrester. Yeah. She passed away Sunday. Mm-hmm. She's from Old Cloverdale, and she was secretary of the Midtown Alliance. And I'm president of the Midtown Alliance, so I want to make sure y'all knew that. Yeah. She's a very civic-minded lady, okay. And
well, here's my Darby connection. When I first moved to Montgomery, her first house on Watson Avenue, before she moved to her parents' house in the park, I lived in Darby's old house, so that's my connection to Darby. Yep.
Okay.
Well, I think what happened is a good tribute to Darby. You know, so active in her neighborhood, knowing what's going on and everything, and that's basically what happened Sunday morning. You know, her neighbors were being neighborly to check on her and found her, so, you know.
I don't know yet what happened, but
yeah.
I just got the word that she passed away. Yeah. The obituary from leaked memory doesn't even say when, but they're conducting the funeral.
Yeah, they as of noonish, they hadn't decided yet. They were still trying to decide what to do.
She was also secretary of the Old Cloverdale Association.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
No, thank you, sir. Mm-hmm. And thank you for speaking directly into the mic.
I've been here before.
I know. Thank you. Always feel free to speak. Okay. And while we're on that avenue, we'd just like to say to our other commissioners and to our listening audience that one of our commissioners, Commissioner Rob Hesse, is out ill right now, and we ask that you would wish the best for him, and we ask that he has a speedy recovery and that he comes back and joins us as soon as possible. Our Commissioner Rob Hesse, who really just joined us a couple of months ago, but he has not been able to come to us this afternoon because of his illness, okay? Christie, let's talk about Mapco. What's the update on that?
At your last meeting, you adopted the resolution that we did send over to the city clerk to go into the council packet. At that council meeting, actually prior to the council meeting, I got a call from a representative from Mapco saying that essentially he was told he needed to talk to me and see about setting up an informal discussion with some members of the ARB. That has not happened as yet. City Council referred the matter back to ARB, presumably after getting the legal opinion that they did not have the legal authority to take the action that was being asked of them. So it's been referred back to the Architectural Review Board. I have sent a couple of emails to Mapco asking to set up a meeting, and I sent them a transcript of the discussion between the board and their representative. And as of last week, was contacted by an attorney who is representing the owner, who said he understood there was a delay in setting up a meeting with Mapco, and I told him the delay was Mapco. So he is trying to facilitate that discussion at this point. So I finally got dates that my board members were available and emailed him this afternoon, and so that's where it stands.
Any comment, question from our other commissioners? Christie, are we on an unprecedented path here, or is this the normal process and we just haven't heard about it? What's going on?
There's nothing normal about this. We started discussions with Mapco about a year ago, and my department director asked me not too long ago, is this how we normally handle things? And I said no. Some projects need a little more hand-holding than others. Most of the time when I deal with petitioners, I will tell them what is likely to work or not work with regards to their project and where they might want to make adjustments. That process goes more smoothly for people who take my advice. That sometimes there's some give and take. There hasn't been much of that here at all. I don't expect the discussions will produce much that's useful. I could be wrong, but based on my conversation with the representative, I don't think there's any intent or desire to alter much of what was presented to the board in December. So it is a little unusual. For me, the positive in it is that when a petitioner says, well, if we don't get this, the landowner's likely to sue the city. And I said, well, and if they do get it, the neighborhood's ready to sue the city. So one way or the other, the city's going to be sued over this. So it's not the big bad wolf of, a corporation, I don't think has the upper hand necessarily in this, because the neighborhood's ready to fight back and stand their ground, and the other neighborhoods, as you all saw at one of our kind of town hall discussions, understand that there are wider implications of this as well. So I'm very proud of our people for banding together and wanting an outsider to follow the rules just like the rest of them have to every day.
Okay, comments? Question? Okay, all right, okay. Any final thoughts on that point, Christie?
I will, if we arrange a meeting next week and anything comes of it, I will certainly let you all know.
Anything that anybody wants to ensure that Christie does at the meeting next week? Okay, thank you very much, Christie. All right, excellent update. Sign committee report for spring 2022, Dr. Melissa Bailey, James Long, and Carole King.
Mr. Long and I met, and Dr. Bailey kind of, she had given us comments and follow-up as well, and so you'll see the complete application process, and then also our report. We did agree, after having reviewed all the photographs and all the notes that that the staff had submitted, as well as the owners, to actually to grant their sign request, 201 Felder, which is the Garden District, the corner of Felder and Gilmer. It was a 1950s house. It has had very little changes, and what we always look for are changes, obviously, from the original, but also looking at things that the ARB did approve. You know, I mean, if the ARB did approve it, then we sort of have to go with that. And they both have retained pretty much their original streetscape. We were a little concerned at 1230 Westmoreland, Old Cloverdale. They had added a parking pad, but it's not a permanent piece of concrete, and it's not horribly visually intrusive. So then the third sign we had was basically for a district sign to be placed in the middle of South Capitol Parkway, replacing an existing sign. So I guess the committee recommends that all three properties, two properties and the district, be granted permission to purchase new signs. Is that how we do it? We nominate, we motion that they be granted the ability to purchase and install historic markers.
Okay, all right. Any comments? Any questions?
I do want to make, he's speaking to the mic. I do want to make one comment. I agree with the committee's recommendations, but I just wanted to point out, let me see here, on the 1230 Westmoreland property. So if you flip to the page where it lists by year who the owners are, you'll notice that the Secretary of Paragon Press owned it for a number of years. Paragon Press eventually became Herff Jones, and we have the Herff Jones collection at the Montgomery County Archives. So that's just a little connection, and if you'd like to see the collection, we have it.
On that point, how extensive is it?
Most of the, it's fairly extensive. I mean, it has, the photographs are mainly of, company employees in the plant, but it's a nice little connection, right?
Okay.
And we're digitizing those photographs, so soon you will just be able to go online and see them, as opposed to having to come in.
Well, they were pretty much the only big printer at Brown, I think.
They
For
were a
long
big
time.
printer, yes, and that plant has since closed, which is why we got the collection. They're downsizing, so.
They did all the yearbooks.
They did do all the
did
yearbooks.
church books and everything,
Yep,
yeah.
That's right.
Any other comment or question? Any question? All right. Thank you so much for the.
We need a vote on
You
that.
want a second?
I second that motion.
Okay. Any other readiness? Okay. All those in favor of the report, let it be known by show of hands. Motion carried unanimously.
And they'll receive them in June? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I know you had asked a question about the parking area, and I don't know when that sprung up. It's nothing that came before the board. But, there have been instances in years past where property owners have been told, well, if you'd only do X, we'll give you the sign. And I'm not suggesting that here, but you might suggest that, to enhance a more residential feel
It's true.
for the property, that, you know, perhaps a low hedge or something to soften the appearance of the gravel would be appropriate, or, and pulling it back away from the sidewalk so there's a separation between the sidewalk and
Yeah, they
the
don't have
parking area. So
Okay.
Okay.
you can recommend, and that can be part of the
Okay.
letter.
Okay. That's a good idea.
Or if you want to recommend it now, it could be part of the letter that says, congratulations, you've
Yeah, I think
been
that's a
awarded
good
a
idea.
sign.
You know, that was a little bit, a small setback, but, you know,
Setting is a criteria in determining whether or not a property retains its historic integrity. So, you know, having parking in
Streetscape.
front of a house is, you know, depending on the size of the yard, can be a significant alteration
Right.
to that setting.
yeah, and I think if it had been a concrete or something that, you know, but it's kind of,
Yeah, we did have some concern about that parking, and we went over it, but thought that somehow it had been approved and passed.
that
And
or,
so we didn't want to look at it, but
Yeah.
that is a concern.
plus it didn't look permanent.
Yeah.
Gravel usually ends up somewhere else.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you very much. Christie, awards update?
We have none. We got no submissions. And, you know, in years past, we have solicited, but none of the projects that we know of that are in progress are complete.
Yeah.
So we didn't even have a good pool of we haven't had a lot of large projects, and the ones that are really large are wrapping up, like the City Federal Ravello project.
Nachman.
Would be one, and the work up on Goldthwait with the Hilltop Public House and that sort of thing. I do know that the owner of Goat House Beer Garden has had someone duplicate his porch rail, and I've seen it. It's lovely. It's a good duplication. So he'll be replacing that this year, because I think he's gotten all the parts. So that might be a good restoration of a detail, because part of it was missing. So something to keep in mind, since we have looked at those detail projects in the past before. So
Okay.
that means, because the signs have approved, unless something blows up, we may not need to meet next month, because approving the sign applications for the June meeting was the thing we had to do, and May has generally been reserved for awards, which we don't have. So now if we have a meeting next week that dictates otherwise, we may need to meet in May, but so that I would say that one's iffy right now.
Okay, thank you so much. Anybody has anything going on that you'd like to bring to our attention?
I think, Dr. Bailey, everybody has a flyer about the Historic Preservation Forum that we're sponsoring in May, so that can sort of take the place of kind of a meeting. It's Thursday, May the 19th, and it'll be down at Landmarks. And we've invited some community preservationists to come in, and we'll have a panel, and we're just going to talk about, you know, what historic preservation in the neighborhoods, basically.
Okay.
How to promote it, how to keep it going, kind of how to inspire people. So mark your calendars for that, and then we'll be sending out more things as we go along. But we wanted to make sure. Also, tomorrow night, the Preservation Leadership Seminar is going really well. We're over capacity, 30 plus, but tomorrow night we will have Dr. Howard Robinson from ASU, and he's speaking about the development of Montgomery's African American communities. And we heard him a couple of months ago do it at the Cleveland Avenue, that's not the name of it, library anymore. It was really, really fascinating, and so we asked him to do this. So he does a really good job. So, if anybody wants to sneak in the back and hear Dr. Robinson, tomorrow at 5:30.
Okay, all right.
So.
Okay, anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I have something. I have a question about a particular building. Is it okay if I bring it up?
That's Dr. Bailey's.
Yes, building, yes.
Okay. The Sims building that they're designating, I think I called Ms. King. I'm starting to give tours there, like taking people there because it's connected to the monument, which, by the way, we're opening, our grand opening is May 8th, so I would love for all of you all to come. But I want to make sure what I'm sharing with them is factual, and so I called about the building to make sure it is the building. So is there any, so can you share a little
There's,
bit? Or
I got a pile for you.
Great,
I got a pile of information for you. There's a little bit of maybe not certain, uncertainty about that.
Okay.
And like I said, I know Mary Ann was very upset when those two buildings came down. Because this, the research they did for this, which includes, this is 29, 31, and 33 South Peary Street, just behind what is now the, well, it's a post office, but I can't think of the name of it, the corner.
Stamp.
Stamp, yeah, right. I wanted to say Aspire, but yeah. But they allude in here that it was in that building. And there's actually a photograph that I have a copy of here for you, too, that shows the buildings that are no longer there as being his offices.
Okay.
There's others, the other Montgomery historian, he alludes in the 1930s that Dr. Sims's office was behind Dr. Hill's, what is now Dr. Hill's. But, of course, Dr. Hill's is more of a late 19th century spot.
Okay.
And Dr. Sims's were obviously antebellum. And then you had talked about, and this is the early, Mary Ann had actually had the early transactions in the deed books as to when Dr. Sims bought it and then when he sold it as well. But, you know, it's done by lots. So you'd have to go back over here to Dallas and figure out which is lot number 9 and which is lot number 10.
We can do that.
You know, and so to see exactly which ones he did. That's probably going to be one of the most confirming right there. But I do have, you know, some material to give you to look over to show you why it is.
So that building is not the original building?
Not that one. It doesn't look like that one that's there. It doesn't, I mean, plus, because also that's a late 19th century building.
Built in what,
1880s, something like that.
1880, okay.
1880s. And he purchased his spot in 1845 and then sold it in 1853, which is pretty consistent with his biography and notes and everything else. And that's what these deed books are talking about too. So it's just to figuring out which is lot number 9 and which is lot number 10.
That's easily done.
So,
But that is the area, though.
yeah, it's going to
where
be
the
one.
Negro
Yeah,
Hospital was.
yeah.
In the
And
back
some
of
of the other Montgomery history books say definitively that it was the one right next to the one that's still there. In other words, 31. He actually was in what is now, what would have been 31. Because 33 is,
The deed, Carol called me and I went through, and the deeds, that was the property the Hills owned, was 31, the building that's now half of a parking lot.
and 33 too.
Do they own, I didn't find them on 33.
Because we, 33 is when you said that the current owner said that Landmarks had sold it to him, which is true. That's what you had come up with.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we would have let 31 go down. But we only had it for
No,
two.
the transaction from but we didn't find any covenants attached to that.
Right.
There was a period of like 2 or 3 months where Landmarks owned it,
We
and
owned
then
it.
it changed hands.
Right.
But there were no restrictions recorded, and there's nothing in the deed.
So it's up in the air, but I think, and then the historian, Peter Brown, and he says, they talk about the Medical Association putting a marker. Now that marker, I think, is done by the Alabama Historical Association, isn't it? Yeah, that's a much newer marker. But they apparently had put them up like very early in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah, so there is a iron metal marker that says that this is the site.
And there
where-
was actually one supposedly on the building that was his, which is gone. But I also have some photographs that I'll show you too that say, you know, this is the office of Dr. J. Marion Sims, and it's not 33, it's 31.
Okay,
But you can look at these
got it.
and mull over it, and then we'll have to come. But I think it's been up for discussion a lot. So
Okay, thank you.
Okay, take care.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it very much. Anyone else? Okay, Chris, you have anything else before we leave?
I don't, but did you look at the old Sanborn maps online for that?
I don't have access. Mm-mm.
They're available through the University of Alabama.
Oh, to anybody? You don't have to have a
Yeah, it's
subscription.
a cartography department, has historic maps. I just wonder, the lot configurations downtown changed so much because there was a lot of empty space in the middle of the blocks.
Behind, yeah.
And then when stuff burned down, fell down, or whatever, and got built back, they took up the entire piece of property. But I wonder if there's an 1884 and an 1888 map that I would think would include that block of Perry Street.
Oh, you mean those bird's eyes?
No, the Sanborn map.
Oh, the Sanborns. Bird's eyes would help a little bit too. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
But
okay.
since the Sanborns do block by block, those early maps I would think, would include the core of downtown because the early ones say Market
Right.
Street instead of
Right.
Dexter Avenue.
But I think part of the thing is to go to that deed book and look too. So
Okay, all right. Anybody else? Let us thank Ms. Paula Richardson, I'm sorry, Ms. Paula Wade and Christie Anderson of City of Montgomery for coming out this afternoon, and our other commissioners, and we appreciate your sparing some of your time with us, and to Mr. Mike Mann, who handles all of the controls for us. There being no further business, the meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you.
don't put you out, buddy.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris.